In section 9.4 now, we're going to be first starting with this example, and it says that we want to solve for particular variables now. So for example, in this one it says solve each formula for the given variable. So we want to solve for r, and we're going to keep the plus or minus in this first example, part A. All right, so we have a equals pi r squared, which is the area of a circle, and we want to solve for r. Okay, so let's just review. When we are solving, anytime that we're solving, we always want to use the principle of the opposite operation. Okay, we always want to do the opposite operation. Okay, so the opposite of addition is subtraction, and the opposite of subtraction is addition. The opposite of division is multiplication, and the opposite of multiplication is division. The opposite of squaring a number, and maybe I'll just do x squared. If I'm squaring a number, the opposite of squaring is taking the square root, or rooting the number. And it just depends if this is a square or a third root. You know, if I take the third power, fourth power, then that means the opposite of rooting would be squaring there. Okay, so we're going to use this principle of taking the opposite operation to solve these guys here. All right, so if you come over here, that means I need to get rid of the pi and get rid of the square. Okay, so that means I can get r by itself. So let's first deal with this pi. This is pi times r, so the opposite of multiplying by pi is dividing by pi. So I'm going to divide both sides by pi. So the pi's cancel out. Wata. So I get a over pi equals r squared. Now I have to get rid of the square, so the opposite of squaring is square rooting. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. The square crosses out with the square root, and I get r equals plus or minus the square root of a over pi. And that's all we had to do right there. We're just solving for a particular variable. Oops. And in this case, we're only solving for r. Okay. All right, let's go on now to example B. So here we need to, example B is right here. We want to solve now for A, the letter A, and this is a little more complicated than the last problem. We have S equals 30 times the square root of A over P. Okay, so let's first get rid of this 30 right here. Okay, this right here is 30 times this right here, so the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I'm going to divide both sides by 30. So I get S over 30 equals the square root of A over P. Now I need to get rid of the square root, so the opposite of taking the square root is squaring. So I'm going to square both sides, and I use parentheses to show that I'm squaring the whole thing. Well, the square and the square root cancel out, and I get A over P equals, I square the S, and I square the 30. So that's S squared over 30 squared, or just 900. Okay. Last but not least, I need to get rid of the P. Well, what operation is the P doing? The P is dividing, right? It's A divided by P, so the opposite of dividing by P is multiplying by P. So I'm going to multiply the right side and the left side by P. So our final answer then, when those are gone, is A equals S squared times P all over 900. And again, the P, you can think of it as over 1. So P times S squared is PS squared, and then 1 times 900 is 900 right there. Okay, so we just have to solve for particular variables.